At 11:47 p.m. on October 13th, 2019, 17-year-old Emma Martinez made her final phone call. The line rang 6 times before going to voicemail. That call was never returned, and by morning, 3 people would be dead, 1 would be missing, and a small town in Oregon would never sleep soundly again. Emma's voice panicked Mrs. Chen. Please pick up. Something's wrong. The kids won't stop crying and there's someone. Line goes dead. What you just heard was the last 30 seconds of Emma's life as we knew it. But this story starts 6 hours earlier, when Emma thought she was just taking on another easy babysitting gig. She was wrong. Tonight's story is titled, "The Babysitter's Final Call Was Never Answered." But before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, if you're wearing headphones, perfect. If not, you might want to put some on. Or you can lower the volume now, just enough so my voice blends gently with the stillness of your room. Close your eyes. Let your shoulders sink just a bit more into your pillow. You don't have to do anything. Just listen. Let me paint you a picture. Emma Martinez, honor roll student, varsity soccer player, the kind of teenager who actually volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends. She'd been babysitting since she was 14, had a sterling reputation in Millbrook Heights, and parents fought to book her Saturday nights. The Chens were new to the neighborhood. Dr. Richard Chen, a cardiologist who'd just transferred to Portland General. His wife, Susan, worked remotely for some tech company. They had twin boys, Michael and David, both 5 years old. Cute kids, according to Emma's best friend Jessica, who'd babysat them once before. But Jessica wasn't available that Saturday night. Food poisoning, she claimed, and the Chens were desperate. They had tickets to some medical charity gala that Dr. Chen couldn't miss, career stuff, you know? So when Jessica recommended Emma, they jumped at the chance. $50 for 5 hours. Easy money. Doorbell ring. The Chen's house sat at the end of Maple Grove Lane, one of those new construction McMansions with too many windows and not enough soul. When Emma arrived at 6 p.m. sharp, Dr. Chen was already adjusting his bow tie in the foyer mirror. Dr. Chen rushed Emma, right? Jessica's friend? Thank God you could make it. The boys have already eaten mac and cheese, their favorite. Bedtime's at 8:30, but honestly, if you can get them down by 9, you're doing better than we usually do. Susan Chen came clicking down the marble staircase in heels that probably cost more than Emma's monthly allowance. She looked nervous, that frazzled parent kind of nervous. Susan Chen, speaking quickly, the emergency numbers are on the fridge. Pediatric Ian, poison control, our cell phones. The boys know not to go upstairs after bedtime. That's Daddy's office, and he has important papers up there. Oh, and Emma, if they ask about the basement, just tell them it's off limits. We're having some renovations done. Emma nodded along, mentally cataloging the usual parent paranoia. Don't go upstairs. Don't go downstairs. She'd heard variations 100 times before. Rich parents were always weird about their spaces. The Chens left at 6:15 p.m. Their Mercedes pulled out of the circular driveway with the kind of urgency that suggested they were already running late. Emma watched their taillights disappear around the corner, then turned back to face the house. And that's when she noticed it for the first time. The silence. See, when the Chens were rushing around, there had been this constant background noise, the boys playing, laughing, the general chaos of family life. But now, nothing. The house felt empty. Emma, calling out Michael, David, where are you guys? She found them in the living room, sitting perfectly still on the white leather couch. Not playing with toys, not watching TV, just sitting, staring at her with identical blue eyes. Michael, flat, emotionless, are you the new babysitter? Emma, that's right, I'm Emma. Jessica told me you guys are super fun. What do you want to play? David, same flat tone, we don't play anymore. Emma felt that first little prickle of unease, but she pushed it down. Kids could be weird, especially with new babysitters. She'd won over stranger kids than these. For the next 2 hours, Emma tried everything in her considerable babysitting arsenal. Board games, The boys sat motionless and let her move their pieces for them. Movies? They stared at the screen without blinking, never reacting to jokes or action sequences. Snacks? They ate mechanically, like robots programmed to consume. By 8:30, Emma was ready to put them to bed, hoping that sleep would reset whatever weird mood they were in. She herded them upstairs to their shared bedroom, a shrine to childhood with bunk beds, toy boxes, and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Emma, all right, guys, time for pajamas. Then we'll brush teeth and... Michael, Emma, yeah, buddy. Michael, still that flat, emotionless tone. Do you want to see something cool? Now, Emma had been babysitting long enough to know that when kids want to show you something cool, it's usually either a pet they're not supposed to have, a mess they've made, or some weird body function they've just discovered. She was prepared for any of those. She wasn't prepared for what came next. David, it's in the basement. Emma remembered Mrs. Chen's warning about renovations, about the basement being off-limits. Emma, oh, I don't think we're supposed to go down there. Your mom said. Michael, Mom lied. The way he said it, so matter-of-fact, so certain, made Emma's stomach clench. Emma, well, how about we save it for another time? Let's get you guys ready for bed. But when she turned around to grab their pajamas, both boys were gone. Emma, calling after them, Michael, David, come back up here. She followed the sound of their footsteps through the house, down the main staircase, through the kitchen, until she found herself standing in front of a door she hadn't noticed before. A heavy wooden door with a deadbolt lock. A deadbolt lock that was currently open. Emma, shouting down into darkness, boys, you need to come back up here right now. Your parents said the basement is off-limits. But there was no response, just the sound of footsteps disappearing into the darkness below. Emma stood there for a full 30 seconds, weighing her options. She could call the Chens, interrupt their fancy charity gala, and admit that she'd lost control of the situation in under 3 hours. She could call her parents, but they'd probably just tell her to handle it herself. Or she could go down there, retrieve 2 5-year-olds, and pretend this never happened. The basement stairs were old, older than the rest of the house. They creaked under her weight, and the air grew colder with each step down. Emma used her phone's flashlight to navigate, the beam cutting through darkness that seemed thicker than it should be. Emma, calling out and her voice echoing, Michael, David, this isn't funny anymore. We need to go back upstairs. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floors, exposed pipes, the smell of damp earth. Emma's phone light swept across storage boxes, an old water heater, a workbench covered in dust. And then she saw them. Michael and David, standing in the far corner, facing the wall. Emma, relief in her voice, there you are. Come on, guys, we need to. She stopped, because as her flashlight beam hit them, she realized they weren't just facing the wall. They were talking to it. Emma, approaching slowly, boys, what are you doing? Michael, not turning around, we're talking to Sarah. Emma, Sarah? Who's Sarah? David, still facing the wall, she lives here. In the wall. She's been waiting for us. Emma's phone light played across the concrete wall where the boys were standing. It looked normal, just gray concrete blocks, some water stains, nothing unusual. Except for the crack. A hairline crack that ran from floor to ceiling, right where the boys were standing. And from that crack, Emma could swear she heard something. Breathing. Emma, backing away and voice shaking, boys, we need to leave. Right now. Michael, finally turning around, but his eyes looked different. Darker Sarah wants to meet you, Emma. David, also turning, same dark eyes, she's been so lonely. And that's when Emma noticed something that made her blood freeze. The crack in the wall, it was getting wider. Emma grabbed both boys by their hands and yanked them away from a wall. They didn't resist. They came along docilely, like sleepwalkers being led to bed. But as they climbed the basement stairs, Emma could hear it behind them. The crack was definitely getting wider. Emma, breathless and pulling the boys, come on, move, move. They reached the kitchen, and Emma slammed the basement door behind them, throwing the deadbolt. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely work the lock. Michael, calmly, you can't keep her down there forever. Emma, what did you say? But both boys were just standing there, looking at her with those unsettling dark eyes. David, Sarah doesn't like being locked up. The door shuttered. Emma stepped back, pulling the boys with her. Emma, upstairs. Now, we're going upstairs. She herded them up to their bedroom, her mind racing. Gas leak, maybe? Could a gas leak cause hallucinations? Or maybe the boys were playing some elaborate prank, though how they'd managed the sounds from a basement, she couldn't figure out. In the boys' bedroom, Emma tried to restore some normalcy. She got them into their pajamas, though they moved like dolls being dressed. She helped them brush their teeth, though they stared at themselves in the bathroom mirror with unsettling intensity. By 9:30, both boys were in their beds. Michael on the bottom bunk, David on top. Emma sat in the chair between their beds, trying to process what had just happened. Emma, so, tell me about Sarah. Michael, quietly she used to live here, before us. David, she fell down the stairs, the basement stairs. Her neck got twisted. Michael, Daddy found her when we moved in. That's why we can't go upstairs anymore. That's where he keeps her pictures. Emma, what do you mean, he keeps her pictures? David, in his office. Pictures of Sarah. Pictures of the other girls. Michael, the other babysitters. Emma's blood turned to ice water. Emma, what other babysitters? David, there was Rebecca. She had red hair. And Stephanie, she was really tall. And Amy, she wore sparkly earrings. Michael, they all met Sarah, but they didn't like her very much. David, so Daddy helped them stay forever. Emma's mind reeled. The boys were 5 years old. Where would they even get ideas like this? And why did their description of the babysitters sound so specific? Emma, standing up, boys, I need you to stay right here, okay? Don't leave this room. I'm going to call your parents. She stepped into the hallway and immediately pulled out her phone. But before she could dial, she heard it. Music, classical music, drifting up from downstairs. Emma crept to the top of the staircase and looked down. The living room was dark, but she could see the glow of what looked like candlelight dancing on the walls. The Chens weren't supposed to be back until midnight. Emma's finger hovered over Mrs. Chen's number, but something stopped her from pressing call. Maybe it was the way the boys had talked about their father helping the babysitters stay forever. Maybe it was the fact that no renovation she'd ever seen required deadbolts on basement doors. Or maybe it was the photograph she'd just noticed hanging in the hallway. It was a family portrait, Dr. Chen, Mrs. Chen, and the twins. But in the background, barely visible, was another figure. A young woman with long dark hair, standing just behind Mrs. Chen's shoulder. A young woman Emma was certain hadn't been in the photo when she'd walked past it earlier. Emma looked at her phone. Text message from an unknown number. Don't go downstairs. His back. Hide the boys. S. Emma ran to the front window and peered through the blinds. The Chen's Mercedes was in the driveway. They were back 3 hours early. But as Dr. Chen walked toward the front door, Emma noticed something that made her knees weak. He was carrying a large duffel bag. The kind of bag that could hold, well, a lot of things. Emma ran back to the boys' bedroom. Emma, Michael, David, wake up. We need to hide. But their beds were empty. Dr. Chen's voice, from downstairs, calling up Emma? How did everything go tonight? Emma's throat closed up. She looked around the bedroom frantically. The closet? Under the beds. The window was too high to climb out of. Dr. Chen, closer now. At the bottom of the stairs, Emma? The boy's asleep. She had to answer. If she didn't, he'd come looking. Emma, calling down, trying to sound normal, yes. They went down about an hour ago. Everything went great. Dr. Chen, wonderful. Why don't you come down? Susan's in the car. She'd like to thank you personally. But Emma could see out the window. The Mercedes was empty. Emma pressed herself against the bedroom wall, mind racing. The boys were gone. Dr. Chen was lying about his wife being in the car. And someone named Sarah, had warned her not to go downstairs. Dr. Chen, just outside the bedroom now, Emma? Is everything all right up there? She looked around desperately and spotted it, the boy's toy chest. Large enough to hide in, if she curled up small enough. Emma squeezed into the toy chest just as the bedroom door opened. Through the crack where the lid didn't quite close, she could see Dr. Chen's shoes entering the room. Dr. Chen, to himself, confused, where the hell? Him moving around the room, checking under beds, in the closet. Then she heard his voice change, become colder. Dr. Chen, calling out, "Boys? Where are you hiding? Daddy's home." Emma waited 30 seconds, then carefully lifted the toy chest lid. The bedroom was empty. She could hear Dr. Chen moving through the house, calling for the boys. And that's when she heard them. The twins, crying, from the basement. Emma crept down the hallway, past the family photo where the mysterious woman now seemed to be looking directly at her. She reached the top of the main staircase and peered down. Dr. Chen was nowhere to be seen, but the basement door was open again. The deadbolt she'd locked was hanging loose, as if it had been cut. The crying was definitely coming from down there. She made it to the kitchen and approached the basement door. The crying was louder now, and definitely the twins. But underneath their sobs, she could hear Dr. Chen's voice. "Dr. Chen, from the basement, soothing but cold, it's all right. Boys, Sarah's been waiting so patiently to meet your new friend. But Emma seems to be hiding from us." "Dr. Chen, getting closer, Emma? I know you're up there. Why don't you come down and join us? The boys are very worried about you." Emma backed away from the basement door, but she'd made a mistake. In the darkness, she bumped into the kitchen island, knocking over a glass that crashed to the floor. Silence from the basement. Then, "Dr. Chen," his voice changed. "Dangerous now found you." Emma ran. Emma sprinted through the house, Dr. Chen's footsteps pounding behind her. She made it to the front door and yanked on the handle. Locked. Deadbolt from the inside. Emma rattling the door handle desperately. Dr. Chen, behind her. "Close, Emma. There's no need to run. You're going to love meeting Sarah. All the girls do, eventually." Emma spun around. Dr. Chen stood at the other end of the foyer, but he looked different. His bow tie was gone, his shirt was torn, and there was something dark on his hands. Something that looked like blood. Emma, backing against the door, "Where are Michael and David?" Dr. Chen, smiling, "But it doesn't reach his eyes, they're safe. They're with Sarah. She's been so lonely, you see, ever since the accident." "Emma, what accident?" "Dr. Chen, Sarah was our first babysitter. Sweet girl, just like you. But she got curious, just like you. Started asking questions about the basement, about the sounds she heard at night." Dr. Chen, continuing, "So I showed her. I showed her what was down there. What Susan and I had been working on. Our little project." "Emma, what project?" Dr. Chen, preservation. "Emma, you see, Susan and I, we've always been fascinated by the idea of keeping beautiful things forever. Flowers, insects, photographs, people." Dr. Chen, "Sarah was so beautiful when she was scared. The way her eyes widened, the way her voice shook. We wanted to keep that moment forever." Emma's hand found her phone in her back pocket. Dr. Chen, "But Sarah fell down the stairs. Such a shame. We'd barely gotten started." Emma's fingers moved across her phone's screen, dialing 911 without looking. But Dr. Chen noticed her movement. Dr. Chen, lunging forward, "Give me the phone, Emma." Emma dove to the side, scrambling toward the living room. Behind her, she could hear Dr. Chen's shoes on the marble floor. "Dr. Chen, you can't run forever, Emma. This house has very good soundproofing. Susan insisted on it." Emma made it to the living room and saw her escape route, the sliding glass door to the backyard. She sprinted toward it, but as her hands touched the handle, she heard something that stopped her cold. The twins, crying from somewhere in the house. Michael's voice, muffled, distant. "Emma, help us." David's voice, "Don't leave us." Emma stood frozen at the sliding door. She could escape. She could run into the night, flag down a car, call for help. But the boys, Dr. Chen, touching, isn't it? You're concerned for the children. Sarah was the same way. Even when we showed her the photographs of the others, she kept asking about the safety of future babysitters. Emma turned around slowly. "Emma, what photographs?" "Dr. Chen, my study. Upstairs. I keep a record of all our beautiful moments. Would you like to see?" He pulled out a key ring and dangled it in front of her. "Dr. Chen, the boys are upstairs. Emma, in my study. Safe, for now. But if you run, if you leave them here alone with me..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. "Emma, let me see them. Let me see that they're okay. And I'll do whatever you want." Dr. Chen, smiling that cold smile, I was hoping you'd say that. Dr. Chen led Emma upstairs, to a door she'd assumed was just another bedroom. He unlocked it with one of his keys, and Emma stepped inside. The study was a shrine to horror. The walls were covered with photographs, dozens of them. Young women, all around Emma's age. Some smiling in what looked like school photos. Others captured in moments of terror, their faces twisted with fear. And in the center of the room, tied to chairs, were Michael and David. Michael, tearfully, Emma, "We're sorry. We didn't want to help Daddy, but he said he'd hurt us if we didn't." David, "We tried to warn you. We tried to tell you about Sarah." Emma ran to them, but Dr. Chen grabbed her arm. "Dr. Chen, not yet. First, you need to understand what's going to happen." He gestured to a camera set up on a tripod, pointing toward another empty chair. "Dr. Chen, Susan will be so disappointed she missed this. She's actually at a real charity gala. I couldn't risk her being here for the messy part. But don't worry, we'll capture everything for her to enjoy later." "Emma, you're insane." "Dr. Chen, I'm an artist, Emma, and you're going to be my masterpiece." But as Dr. Chen moved toward the camera, Emma noticed something. The boys weren't just tied to their chairs, they were positioned near something else. A ventilation grate in the wall. A ventilation grate that was slightly ajar. And from that grate, she could hear something. Breathing. "Emma," loudly, hoping whoever was in the vents could hear Dr. Chen, "before you start your project, can I ask you something about Sarah?" Dr. Chen, pausing at the camera, "What about her?" "Emma, the boys said she fell down the basement stairs. But if she's dead, why do they keep talking about her like she's still here?" Dr. Chen's smile faltered. "Dr. Chen, children have active imaginations." "Emma, but I heard her too. In the basement. In the walls. And she sent me a text message." Dr. Chen, sharply, "That's impossible." "Emma, is it? Because I think Sarah never left this house. I think she's been hiding, waiting for the right moment to." The ventilation grate crashing to the floor. A figure dropped from the ceiling vent into the study. A young woman with long dark hair, wearing clothes that looked like they'd been underground for months. Her face was pale, dirt-streaked, but her eyes burned with fury. "Sarah. Sarah. Hello, Richard." Dr. Chen, terrified, "No, you're dead. I saw you fall. I saw." "Sarah, you saw me fall down the stairs. But you didn't check to see if I was actually dead before you sealed me in that basement wall." "Sarah, to Emma, the crack in the wall? That's where he put me. Left me to die in the dark. But I'm very good at staying alive, Richard. I learned to catch rats. To drink the condensation from the pipes. To wait." Dr. Chen, "Sarah, please, I can explain." "Sarah, for years, Richard. For years I've been listening to you bring girls to this house. Listening to them scream, listening to them die." She pulled a knife from her belt, rusty, but sharp. "Sarah, to Emma, untie the boys." Emma's hands shook as she worked on the ropes binding Michael and David. Behind her, she could hear Dr. Chen pleading. "Dr. Chen, Sarah, you don't understand. It wasn't personal. It was art. It was preservation. You were all so beautiful. Sarah, we were human beings." Emma got the boys free and turned around. Sarah stood over Dr. Chen, the knife pointed at his throat. "Sarah, to Emma, take the boys and go. Call the police. Tell them everything." "Emma, what about you?" "Sarah, Richard and I have some things to discuss." Emma took Michael and David by the hands and ran from the study. Behind them, she could hear Dr. Chen's voice, high with terror, pleading with Sarah. They made it downstairs, and Emma grabbed a phone from where it had fallen. Her first call was to 911. 911 operator. 911, what's your emergency? Emma, breathless, "I need police at 1247 Maple Grove Lane. There are people hurt and..." "Emma, please hurry." The police arrived 12 minutes later. They found Emma and the twins in the front yard, wrapped in blankets that a neighbor had brought over. In Dr. Chen's study, they found evidence of at least 7 murders spanning 5 years. They also found Dr. Chen's body. Sarah was gone. The official report stated that Dr. Richard Chen had been killed by an unknown assailant who had gained entry to the house through the ventilation system. Despite an extensive search, no trace of this assailant was ever found. The boys, Michael and David, were placed in protective custody while social services investigated their mother's involvement. Susan Chen was arrested 2 days later at the Portland airport, trying to board a flight to Switzerland. Emma spent 3 days in the hospital, treated for shock and dehydration. When she was released, she found a note waiting for her at home. A note that simply said, "Thank you." But the story doesn't end there. 3 weeks after that night, Emma was walking home from school when she saw a familiar figure standing at the bus stop. Long dark hair, pale skin, wearing clothes that actually fit and look clean. Sarah. Sarah, as Emma approaches Emma. Emma, Sarah? I thought everyone thinks yo. Sarah, dead? I was, for a while. But I got better. They stood in silence for a moment. Emma, where will you go? Sarah, somewhere warm. Somewhere with a lot of sunlight. I've had enough of dark places. The bus arrived, and Sarah climbed the steps. But before the doors closed, she turned back to Emma. Sarah, Emma, if you ever babysit again, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Emma never saw Sarah again. But sometimes, late at night, when she's alone in her room, Emma gets text messages from unknown numbers. Messages that just say things like stay safe or remember to lock your doors. She always saves these messages because she knows that somewhere out there, Sarah is watching out for girls like her. Girls who take babysitting jobs and trust that parents will keep them safe. Girls who deserve to make it home. The house at 1247 Maple Grove Lane stands empty now. The city condemned it after the investigation, and no one wants to buy property with that kind of history. But neighbors report strange things. Lights in the windows late at night. The sound of children laughing in the backyard. And sometimes, on very quiet nights, they say you can hear a phone ringing inside the empty house. Ringing and ringing, but never answered. Just like Emma's final call that night. The call that saved her life. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe for more tales of the unexplained, the mysterious, and the downright terrifying. Hit that notification bell, because you never know when the next story might save your life. And remember, if you're ever babysitting and something feels wrong, trust your instincts.